Hi, I'm AJ Nash, Digital Intelligence Advocate for Authenticate, and today I'm launching a new weekly intelligence briefing series where I'm going to quickly run through some of the most interesting and impactful events of the week. Now, these are just the highlights, but you can get more of the details on the Authenticate website on their blog or by subscribing for free. So, listen, it's been a hell of a week, frankly. So, let's jump right in. First up, let's talk about AI enhanced social engineering attacks. Vishing, right? Voice phishing. It's jumped 442% in the back half of 2024, and that trend is continuing as AI generated impersonations continue to be increasingly convincing, and the tools just become more and more readily available. Some of these phishing attacks are so good that the voices are nearly indistinguishable from authentic persons that are being impersonated. So, listen, I've played with some of these tools. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of fun that can be gained from playing with some of these AI tools. I'm actually personally working on a bit of a digital doppelganger of sorts that some of you might end up seeing in some of the work I do. Because I just have more content that I'm going to have time to record, it'll always be labeled and people will know that it's not truly me. But it is impressive what you can come up with very quickly with these voice impersonations. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much of a sample of voice or video even to create some really impressive digital impersonations. And these tools again are cheap and they're effective. They're easily available. So there's a lot of valuable, legitimate reasons to use them. As I said, I might do this myself, but it's also something that's very easy to use for criminal purposes. Because again, I have video all over the internet. A lot of people do. It wouldn't be hard to take my audio or my video and impersonate me. So as we move into this post-truth world, again, it's going to be very challenging for us to keep track of what's real, what's not, and what we can and can't trust. And this is one example of that. Now, another trend to watch for right now is supply chain attacks, which are up 260%, 267% actually, year over year, Q1 of last year to Q1 of this year. And managed service providers are right in the crosshairs there. They're now responsible for 73% of initial access vectors. Threat actors have realized the value of compromising MSPs because that opens the door to attack a whole lot of other organizations. In fact, on average, an attack of an MSP opens the door to about 47 different victims. And the average financial harm of those attacks through the MSPs is about 4 times what it would be through direct attacks. So, this has always been a bit of a challenge whenever you work with vendors, whether it's MSPs or somebody else. We are opening ourselves up or in some cases, we're offloading our security responsibilities to somebody else. And this isn't a shot at MSPs. I like them. I've worked with them. I've worked for them. It's just a risk that comes along with that business arrangement. So it's important to understand that threat actors have figured this out. MSPs, there's more bang for their buck. If they can compromise the MSP, it's dozens of victims available to them. So there's a big rise there, and I'm sure MSPs are working hard to continue to get better in security because they understand this risk. What else is hot this week? Let's talk about the ever shrinking gap between vulnerability disclosure and active exploitation. So historically, when a vulnerability has been announced, the gap between the time it's announced and the time you start seeing active exploits has been about 32 days, as of last year. But new reporting indicates this year that timeline is compressed dramatically. In fact, about 28% of CVEs that are now being exploited, it's only 24 hours after they've been announced. Now, that timeline's way too short for the traditional patching cycle. 32 days wasn't a big issue. You had, plenty of time to patch. Patch Tuesday comes out every week. There's other patches that come out. You had some time. 24 hours just isn't enough time. So most security organizations now have to deal with exposure windows that they cannot close. Certainly not as fast as these things are being exploited. Now, again, only 28% of CVEs are being exploited within 24 hours. It doesn't mean you have those CVEs. But we're having this challenge of this compression of time as threat actors, again, keep pressuring organizations. It's very important, obviously, to keep up on CVEs as a result and understand which ones we should be looking for, which ones are in our environments, because this is something we have to be concerned about. Because now, if it takes you a couple of days to even find out about the CVE, if you're not really on top of it, you might already be exploited. Other big news this week, in fact, if we're talking about CVEs, CISA just announced Rockwell PowerMonitor. And a lot of people may not know this technology, but if you work in critical infrastructure, you probably do. It's deployed widely across critical infrastructure. It's in the power industry. It has 2 critical flaws that CISA announced that has CVSS scores of 9.8. which they enable complete device takeover by remote threat actors. So threat actors can take over this piece of equipment. They can execute remote code. They can shut things off. They can overload systems. It's a huge problem. There is a patch out for this, and it should be implemented immediately. So again, if you have Rockwell PowerMonitor 1000 specifically, if you don't know for sure, you should certainly check, and you should be patching this one immediately, because this is a serious concern. There's 2 vulnerabilities for remote exploitation. And hey, one last thing, as long as we're talking about CISA, they made an announcement this week that caught some people by surprise, as they said they were going to stop publishing their cybersecurity advisories on their public webpage. Instead, they wanted to move to an email and social media distribution system. Now, distribution systems, people use email and social media. That's all fine and good. But in this case, this would have been a significant issue because this would have been impactful to a lot of security organizations that rely on the CISA advisories, which are coming through an RSS feed that's often tied directly to their collection systems, whether Intel or whatever it might be. And smaller companies would have been very affected by this specifically. So thankfully, CISA has backtracked on the idea because security professionals explained just how big the consequences could be for this choice. But it is a stark reminder of the importance of redundancy, because you just never know when your access to information is going to evaporate. All right, listen, that's all the time I have for today's weekly Cyber Intel brief. But you can get all the details from these events and a lot more, frankly, by checking out the full report from Authenticate. Again, check the blog, take a look at Authenticate, find out how you can subscribe for this. Until next time, have a great day and hopefully a quiet weekend.